Hello and welcome to today's video. So in today's video I'm replacing the interlock mechanism, which you can see here. That's the broken one. What actually happened with that is it shorted out and literally blew itself apart. This is the new one. Obviously make sure you compare both the part numbers. That I'm holding there is a contact shield which you need to have in place, otherwise the interlock will earth against the machine and cause many problems. One problem that it can cause, and this is the main control module unit from the machine, it's actually the old one. If I just pop open this top panel here, what you will see is, when it finally comes open, every single what I think are protection diodes have literally blown. So you can see those three diodes there, and they have, well, they've literally just blown to pieces. So I would say theoretically, if you have the technology to be able to do so, you could solder in some new items, possibly sort of clean up some of that scarring from around there. But what I actually did was I sourced a replacement control module, relying on the bottom part number. So if you look at that bottom part number, that's the one that you need to match up. Now you'll see that there are two different well, actually there's several different versions of that control unit depending on the model of the machine, and they can look visually identical, but there are sort of detailed differences which, you know, can catch you out a little bit. You'll notice on the front of this machine there is a bit of I've actually sort of done the paint job again on this, but there was a little bit of rust on the machine from a previous water leak, and what I actually did was I rubbed back the rust, used some Curust on it, sort of stuff you would normally use on car metalwork, or car bodywork rather, and then sprayed some Rust-Oleum appliance paint onto the machine just to sort of brighten it up a little bit. It does look better. I've actually gone over it again since when the machine was on a boil wash, and it looks a lot better because obviously the metal was nice and warm. I warmed up the can as well, as I would do with you know, any sort of car-based work, and everything sort of looked a lot better. Anyway, onto the task in hand. So when you're actually refitting one of these interlock units, it's best to make sure that you've got that protective sheath on there. Some people do actually pull back the drum rubber, which you can see there, but in this instance I decided to just reach down into the machine, screw the latch interlock in place, and plug in the wiring connector underneath. It actually turns out that the wiring connector on this particular model can only go in one particular way. It's a conventional 3-pin connector, so if I remember rightly, you've got a constant live, a switched live, and there's another one, but I can't remember what it's for. There are videos on YouTube which do explain it in more detail. Now, I will be perfectly honest and say that the interlock stopped working. Basically, the door would no longer shut. So I removed the original interlock to inspect it, see if there was anything inside that I could sort of clean up or repair. And when I put it back, I forgot to fit that all-important plastic shield. What actually happened then was when I shut the door, it arced internally, blew apart the inside of the interlock, and also toasted my main control board. So I ended up with a repair bill that was slightly bigger than I was expecting. However, this video is so that you can learn from my mistakes, and obviously never make that mistake. It's a really silly mistake to make. These things are in place for your safety. If in doubt, entrust the job to a professional. Now, incidentally, I've got two boards here. One is white, one is black. That is literally the only difference. And the black one, I believe, comes from another version of this machine which was available in black. You could either get them in white or black. I think there may have been a silver one as well. The connectors themselves, very like a car wiring loom actually. The connectors can sort of typically only go in one place, and there's just enough wire on there to allow you to get them into the correct place. Now, this unit didn't come with the rotary dial selector, so what I did was I took the rotary dial selector off of the old unit, and it only goes in, well, it can actually go in two ways, but you want it so that the connector is facing upwards. So as you look at the unit from above, the connector, the wiring connector, will actually be at the top. I actually put it in the wrong way initially, and I turned it around a little later after sort of realising my mistake, because it all worked, it all lined up, but you found that the timings and the sort of wash functions didn't seem to sort of tie up with the wash that they were supposed to sort of be corresponding to. Now, as regards versions of these boards, I've learnt that there are later versions which have got sort of two what look like sort of main power connectors. This one's got one single large power connector, and this is actually would be classed as an earlier version of the board. Unfortunately, I've obscured the picture there a little bit as I'm sort of going into it, but you've obviously got cables coming from that pressure sensor, which you can see just by my hand. There's also signal wire from the motor itself, which gives you sort of information from the motor's inbuilt tachometer. And there's a couple of other wires and sensors in there as well, such as grounding wires, etc. The board itself actually sort of tells you pretty much what is what, so it's not too difficult to sort of plug everything back in. You can see here I've actually realised my mistake with the rotary dial, and I went off and actually sorted it out. So once I got everything reassembled, the first thing I did was to actually just go through each individual program and make sure that everything sort of looked like it was on the right sort of times. You can sort of tell, because your daily quick washes are going to be a much quicker time than the other washes, and your rinse and drain modes are going to be a lot quicker. The other one was just to make sure that these individual buttons work, which they do. You can see I can select the speed for the spin. I can also select the temperature, and can do sort of various other things. You can also see a close-up of the poor paint job that I performed on the machine earlier before I sorted it out a little bit later. The next thing to do is, once you've got everything sort of working from that perspective, is to just fully reassemble the machine. Put the top lid back on, screw everything back in, push the machine back into place, and run it through, in this case I ran it through a complete high temperature cycle with some descaler in the machine, mainly because this machine is going to be going up for sale soon, and I just wanted to give it a final service wash before letting it go. What you want to do is you just want to sort of sit through the initial fill process, make sure that it fills with water correctly and it doesn't overfill. You then want to just let it go through, as you can see here, make sure that the drum rotates in either direction. I periodically went back and actually just checked the temperature of the, just sort of touched the glass to make sure that it was getting warm, leaving it on a 90-degree wash. It seemed fine and there were no leaks around the machine. So I would say that this was a successful job. Hopefully you have found this video useful. I know I certainly learnt a lot from the process, as I do like to play around with my own consumer electricals. I also learnt a valuable lesson about the electrical shield, which I should have known in the first place, but I thought I'd get away with it. I didn't. Anyway, if you found this video useful, don't forget to hit that like button, and also consider subscribing for more upcoming and fascinating hobbies. Thank you for watching.